Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to Tanya for Life. We're now in chapter 24. So let's begin with a quick summary. In chapter 18, the Alter Rebbe began to explain how it is very near and accessible to each of us to serve Hashem out of a feeling of love and a feeling of awe by means of awakening the hidden love which is latent in all of us. To clarify how this hidden love can lead to the observance of all the mitzvot, the Alter Rebbe proceeded to discuss the relationship of all the mitzvot to the precept of belief in Hashem's unity and to the prohibition against idolatry. The unity of Hashem, he explained, means not only that there is but one Hashem, rather that God is the only existing being, and all else is contained within him. Conversely, idolatry does not necessarily mean a denial of God's existence or of his being unique. Any assertion that something exists beyond and separate from Hashem also constitutes idolatry. In chapter 23, the Alter Rebbe went on to state that through Torah and mitzvot, in which the divine will stands revealed, one reaches a perfect union with Hashem. In this chapter, he explains that a transgression has exactly the opposite effect of a mitzvah. Whereas a mitzvah joins one to God, a transgression severs one from him. Whereas a mitzvah attests to God's unity, a transgression implies idolatry. So, continuing with the chapter, since everything in the realm of holiness has its counterpart in the unholy realms of the Sitra Achra, there is also an unholy counterpart to the observance of the mitzvot and to Torah study, which produce union with Hashem. So their counterpart in the realm of Sitra Achra, the unholy, is the 365 prohibitions stated in the Torah and all the rabbinical prohibitions, since they are contrary to and the very opposite of Hashem's will and wisdom. They represent total and complete separation from his unity and his oneness. They are the same as the Sitra Achra and the Klippa, which are called idolatry and other gods, since the internal aspect of the divine will is concealed from them, as explained above, that they receive their life force from the hinder part of the divine will, the level of Acharayim, and for this reason they are called Elohim Acherim, other gods. Just as the forbidden actions themselves represent separation from godliness, so too the three garments of a Jew's animal soul, which stems from the klippa of Noga, namely the thought, speech, and action that are clothed in, that is the thought, speech, and action in violation of the 365 Torah prohibitions or in any of the rabbinical injunctions. And similarly, the essence of the soul itself, which is clothed in its garments, since it is the soul itself, after all, which thinks, speaks, and acts through its garments, the faculties of thought, speech, and action. All of them become completely united with the Sitra Achra and Klippa called Avodah Zarah, idolatry. Not only are they united with the Klippa, and thus equal to it, but furthermore, they become secondary and subordinate to it, and much lower and more debased than it. For the Klippa is not clothed in a corporal body, and hence is more exposed to the divine light. It knows its master and does not rebel against God forbid, by any independent act of sending its evil messengers, other than in the service of Hashem. Any evil act of the Sitra Achra is performed only in the service of God. Thus, the Klippot that are not clothed in a body cannot rebel against God's will. Only the animal soul, clothed in the human body, can do so. Hence, it is even lower than the Klippah. So did Bilam say, I cannot violate the word of Hashem. That was in a parsha not long ago. Balak. I cannot violate the word of Hashem. Although the Klippot are called Avodah Zarah, idolatry, which is a denial of Hashem, yet they refer to him as the God of gods, indicating that they do not deny him completely. They cannot violate God's will, for they know and perceive that he is their life and sustenance, since they derive their nurture from the hindermost aspects of the divine will, which encompasses them. It is only the sustenance and life force that is within them, the internal life force that constitutes the identity of every created being, as explained in chapter 22, that is in exile, in a state of exile, so that they regard themselves as gods, which is a denial of Hashem's unity. But they are not so completely heretical as to deny Hashem and to assert that he does not exist. On the contrary, they regard him as the God of gods, recognizing that their life and existence ultimately derive from his will. Therefore, they never rebel against Hashem's will. It follows then that the person who does violate Hashem's will is greatly inferior to and more debased than the Sitra Achra and Klippa, which are called avodah zarah and other gods. He is separated completely from Hashem's unity and oneness, even more than they are, as though denying his unity even more radically than they. Chas v'chalila. This is similar to what is written in Eitz Chaim, Portal 42, end of chapter 4, that the evil in this corporeal world is the dregs of the coarse klippot. It is the sediment of the purifying process, and so on. So after whatever sparks of good that are found in the klippot have been isolated and elevated, what remains is klippa in its lowest, coarsest form. The klippa is the evil found in this material world. For this reason, all matters of this world are harsh and evil, and the wicked prevail in it, and so forth. This explains the commentary of our sages on the verse, if a man's wife turns aside and commits adultery, and no man commits any transgression unless a spirit of folly has entered into him. The sages thus relate the root of tiste turns aside to shtus, folly. For even an idolatrous woman, with her frivolous nature, could have controlled a passionate drive, were it not for the spirit of folly within her, which covers and conceals the hidden love within her divine soul that yearns to cleave to her faith in God and to his unity and oneness, and that resists even on pain of death any separation from his unity through idol worship, i.e., even this adulteress would willingly sacrifice her life rather than submit to coercion to practice idolatry. Even as if this idol worship would consist merely of an empty act of prostrating herself before the idolized object without any belief in her heart in the validity of idol worship. Now, if her hidden love of God has the power to enable her to face death rather than be separated from Hashem, surely then it is within its power to overcome the temptation and lust for adultery, which is lighter suffering than death. May Hashem protect us. It is only the spirit of folly, which is the notion that her sin will not tear her away from godliness, that leads her to commit adultery. Wow, adultery. Wow, this is amazing. The spirit of folly is the notion that her sin will not tear her away from her godliness. How many times do we experience that? You know, even unconsciously. How many times do we do things, or say things, or think things, or continue in our whatever place we're in, stump we're in, because we're not thinking that it will tear us away from godliness. So that notion, just that thought that it's not, or even like the subconscious thought or the overall feeling that we're not going to be torn away from Hashem by doing all these things, is a spirit of folly, because in actuality, yes, we are. It's a big one. I think that's so amazing. Usually I hear spirit of folly, but I never really heard it like this, that it is something so direct that you can identify. If you identify that you're thinking, this will not turn me away from Hashem, that is the spirit of folly. It might be argued, however, that she differentiates between adultery and adultery. She regards the former as much more heinous and thus more certain to tear away from Hashem than the latter. Perhaps this differentiation, not the spirit of folly, is why she would sacrifice her life rather than practice adultery. Yet at the same time, she would not sacrifice her temptation for adultery. In answer, the Alter Rebbe states, the distinction she makes between the prohibition against adultery and that against idolatry is also but a spirit of folly, stemming from the Klippa. I love this sentence, stemming from the Klippa. There are so many times that and again, all of what we're learning is not to not something to look at ourselves in a bad way or a negative way or a way that, oh, there's another thing that we're doing to get in our own way and hurting ourselves. Chas v'chalila. It's more like bringing awareness to something, especially in a Torah way, like what we're doing here, straight direct from the Alter Rebbe, and all of our sages that he quotes, and the Torah and HaKadosh Baruch Hu that he quotes. So it's all from a Kaddish point source. And so when we're bringing this Kaddish awareness into our life, into our thinking, and into our behaviors, our speech, as well, like we become more, and I was talking about it recently, that we are able to unveil and bring to mind these these things that need to be looked at in order for us to uncover the true us that's hidden under everything. And when we do that, just from being conscious, we can start to use this consciousness to pray to Hashem and ask for his help in these areas, which means we open the door. We open the door to Hashem to enter into this area that we're struggling with. It's not that we should expect better from ourselves. Chas v'chalila. This whole Tanya is teaching us you don't have to expect better from yourselves. You are where you are for a reason. Don't even think you're going to be a tzaddik. Don't think that you are a tzaddik, first of all, and don't think you're even at the level of Benoni, who doesn't sin with speech, thought, or action. And but yet feels the inclination to do all of that. So no, we're not even on that level. That's the level we want to get to. That's the level we're trying to refine ourselves more and more and more to get to. And remember, one of our I think it was our last lesson, it's more and more and less, like Miriam teaches. Like more and more will be refined and less will be unrefined. B'ezrat Hashem. That's what we're looking for. So what we're doing here when we're bringing this Kaddish awareness is saying this is our neshama. This is where our neshama thrives. This is where our mission in life is. This is our purpose in life. The Torah and its teachings and Torah and mitzvahs, like we're learning here. So we need to continuously bring Hashem's chachma and sechel and wisdom into our mind so that it guides us. And what is Hashem's chachma and wisdom? It's the Torah learning, what we're doing right now. And when we're working to refine ourselves, Miriam's book, prayer, reaching new heights through prayer and meditation. She opens up in chapter 1 with a stunning line, and I wish I had it right in front of me. I do not. But it's, I think, a quote from Kuntrus Hacharon, or Kuntrus Hatfila, or Kuntrus Advoda. I'm not sure which one. But from one of our Rebbe's teachings is, and I actually forgot which Rebbe wrote it. One of the previous Rebbes of Chabad, Lubavitch. So it was that prayer, the work of refining ourselves is really only ever reached through prayer. It's not something that we can just think of and be conscious of in our daily day-to-day, and then we refine ourselves. That's not how it works. We gain consciousness through Torah learning. Then we apply it into our davening, and we open the door to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and we say, Hashem, this, I need help with this, to do your will. And as we work, do this avodah of prayer service, then we learn Torah again to bring back Hashem's wisdom again. And then we reach higher levels. Eventually, we reach higher levels so that one day we'll look back and we'll see, oh, actually, I used to struggle so much with that. Especially if you write your hitbodedut as well, like I do, then you can look back and you can see, oh wow, you know, on this day, even a few weeks ago, or even a year ago, or even however long ago, I used to really struggle with this, and it's another reason to say thank you to Hashem. Like, wow, Hashem, like you're really there, and you're really helping me through this life, through the clip of the world, through, all the times when I thought that I wasn't going to be able to move through it all. You were there, and I've drastically, like, my life is different. And I'm more who I really am. And that's another teaching of Miriam. That we're not trying to, change who we are. We're not trying to change ourselves to be more nice to others, etc., etc. No, everything that's causing us to be not nice to others or not nice to ourselves or all of that stuff, that's a coarse shell. So that's not who we are. That we just read earlier, that it's only the animal soul in the only being in the world is in the whole of creation is the animal soul. So the only being in the whole of creation that's able to do something against Hashem's will is the animal soul. So that's the only creation that's able to it's the only creation that's able to take on like clipot and do, evil, for lack of a better, like something that's not Hashem's will, right? So that in itself is amazing because we are the only creation that's able to be so coarse and unrefined. And that shows us if we are the only creation that's able to go to the worst depths of the worst of depths, it shows that that's and we learned that that's changing who we are, because what happens is the klippa is what feeds us, our animal soul, and puts on these clothes of thought, speech, and actions on our animal soul, which is not who our animal soul is, by the way. It's just the garments, right? So when we think of it this way, then the coarseness and like the negative character traits, that's not who we are. That's from the realm of klipa that we want to shed. We want to eventually get to a place where we're so refined and we're not wearing those garments anymore. We choose to wear the garments of purity, and the godly garments. And when we look at it that way, it makes sense what Miriam says, that our purpose is not to change ourselves to be a better person and to make a dwelling place for Hashem. No, our purpose is to dig away at all of our coarseness, like get rid of our coarseness, refine ourselves so we get to the true us who is actually hidden inside. And that's what the Tanya teaches, that we have actually even these truest, most purest forms of avoda of Hashem, which is love and awe of Hashem, deep in our heart, which is always there and it's covered. And that's what we're trying to get to, that true reality. So that happens through learning Torah, the seichel of Hashem, the wisdom of Hashem inputting into us, davening, because that's, our sages teach that is the only place where our refinement will happen. It's going to happen through your davening. So you take all the knowledge that you have from your Torah learning, all the consciousness, all the awareness that you got. So for example, this thought of like of the spirit of folly, when the spirit of folly tells you that when you get the thought or the feeling or the sense that you're not going to be harmed through doing something that Hashem doesn't want you to do, or not necessarily harm, but it's not going to affect your relationship with Hashem. If you do something that Hashem doesn't want you to do, well, that's not true. That is the spirit of folly talking to you. So now we know, and that we know that it comes from Klippa, and we know that that our animal soul will be donning garments of thought, speech, and action, which are not who we are, of the Klippa, and we know that we can go to even lower depths than the Klippa itself, because the Klippa is completely aware of its relationship with God, and we are not at this moment. And we have all of this Torah consciousness to take into our davening and say, Hashem, I'm opening this door. Please come in and help me. There is no way I can travel this myself. I have been, and I have not been aware of all these things, or I've tried and it hasn't worked. I can't do this on my own. And you open the door, and Hashem is here with you. And you then immediately after your davening, you learn the Torah again. And especially if it's Torah that you really want to eternalize, I really suggest like even going over the same Torah again and again and again. Just go for what resonates with you, what you want. But even Torah that you don't really resonate with will still do good. But specifically, if you want to ingrain something into you, I found really helpful to go over the teachings. Like for me, it was really important to learn Miriam's books. So I bought Miriam's books, and it was like transformational Torah for me. It was Torah that I never I was resonating on a new level, in a new way. And so I would do my davening and I would learn from her books. And it was Baruch Hashem. Thank God Hashem allowed me to eat it, to ingest it, to internalize it. But it's Hashem's chachma. And it happens really, the best time to internalize is right after davening. So that is all we have time for today. So happy that we learned this. Hashem is so kind. Wow. I'll make a note. So thank you for joining us, Tanya for Life, and we'll see you, B'ezras Hashem, next week for continuing of chapter 24.